I heard they're super noisy. I couldn't imagine living inside of a metal box. Every time it rained, every time the wind blowed, it would just echo and sound hollow. I had another builder ask me, hey, when y'all do those huge vaults, man, is it not like super echoey and noisy in that house? And I'm like, absolutely not. What's up, everybody? I'm TJ Norris, CEO and co-founder of the Barndo Co., and we've been building Barndominiums for the last 3 years, and we've completed over 300 of them across the Southeast, and we're continuing to grow. So we started this series to help clarify some things about Barndominiums and debunk some myths and some misconceptions. And today I wanted to give you an honest and transparent answer to 5 common misconceptions that I see all the time. So without further ado, let's dive into misconception number 1. It's just a converted barn or a square house with metal roofing and metal siding. So this is kind of 2 parts here. So it can be a converted barn. That's kind of how they started. We went over that in another Barndo 101 series about what is a barndominium. So yeah, barndominiums can be a converted space where you took an old barn and converted it into a home. That's one way. But now it's such a craze that people want to escape, and we look at it as your chance to reclaim your piece of the American dream. And so we build barndominiums from the ground up in new construction, which leads to, is it just a square house with metal siding and metal roofing? Well, that's happening more and more because with more people wanting them, you have some people that just want to offer you something that looks similar to it, right? So that's kind of how you get into the nuts and bolts of this. We went over again in another episode how we build and what makes our builds different than other people's builds. But a true barndominium is a home that's built in the construction method of which you would build a barn. Is it a square house? It doesn't have to be. Let me tell you why you see that often, right? Like I've heard people say like, it just looks like a big mobile home. Well, the reason why you see a lot of rectangular and square structures is because of the way they're constructed. They're constructed so that you can have these big, open, clear span environments, right? The best way to do that is you have posts on each side of the build, and then you have a clear span truss that goes from one post to the other post, and that's how you distribute the load of the building. So that works in the best scenario by building a rectangle or sometimes a square. If you talk to a designer, they're going to tell you squares are the hardest thing to design. So often you'll see them as a rectangle. It does a couple things. One is it cuts down the amount of wasted space and things that you have in there, but do they have to be? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, you can go online and look at our gallery at thebarndoco.com, and you can see a ton of different styles of home. One thing that we love to do is to color outside the lines, and we do it with intention. We want to be able to take people's dreams, turn them into something crazy, and not just build you a superior structure with a Barndo, but we want to be able to turn your dream to life regardless of what it looks like. While I would say the majority of them are going to be, these rectangular shapes, you can do a lot of things with porches and things like that to break those up, doing some dormers, false gables, things like that to create a more eclectic exterior to your barndominium. But yes, they're going to oftentimes be rectangular, but just because you take a house and you put metal siding and metal roof on it, technically, that doesn't make it a barndominium. Yes, it'll give you the style. You can achieve the style. You can achieve the look. And if that's what you're going for, more power to you. But when you get into a Barndo, it's way more than a converted barn or just a little rectangular home with metal siding and metal roofing. There's a number of things that make these superior to conventional construction. Another thing that inside of that mentality is like, I don't want to live in a barn. I don't want to live in like an agricultural barn or an industrial building. And again, I would encourage you to go check out the gallery. These things are incredible. We're utilizing the benefits of the construction method to still unlock and achieve incredibly enchanting spaces that are comfortable. And with the Barndo Co., we build nothing but residential dwellings. So we build with that in mind, and every step of the process is mapped out so that you can achieve that. Moving on. Misconception number 2. Barndominiums are difficult to control the internal temperature in. This is a misconception that goes back to everyone has lived in a home where you had hot spots and cold spots and you know, things just didn't feel right. And when they see or you see these big areas, right, where we have these big vaulted ceilings and you can see the trusses and you know, sometimes we've built buildings that have anywhere from, you know, 22 to 52 foot ceilings in the living area. And the biggest thing is like, man, I'd hate to see the power bill on that house. Well, again, it goes back to the building science and the method that you use. And so at the Barndo Co, what we do is we build the same system every single time. And we know that the best outcome for you is to address all these things on the front end. So our building standard is going to be a whole home encapsulation with open cell spray foam insulation, which will seal that home up, build an entire building envelope where even the attic space is conditioned. And so it provides a very comfortable environment inside of the home, regardless of that ceiling height, because we're going to do a couple things. One, we're going to over insulate way beyond what the standard is for residential construction in the areas that we build in. We far exceed the minimum threshold for that with the system that we build at Barndo Co. Another thing that we do is even in ranch style single story homes, almost always we're doing split HVAC units on there. So we're forcing air into those larger areas from both sides of the house. So you'll have two systems independently running, because a lot of times what you'll see is primary bedroom and bathroom on one wing of the home, and then you'll have your guest bedrooms on the other wing of the home. And we independently climate control those two sides and then use those two units to force air and force heat into that center vaulted area. And when those two systems combat each other, they drive enough heat and or air into the space to keep it comfortable and not put a lot of pressure on any one unit. So both units are working together to keep that area cool. As far as the heating bill, you're basically moving into a version of an insulated cooler. Everything from the roof deck to the exterior walls is insulated, and there's no hot zones. There's no transmission areas from the ceiling of the home to the attic of the home. The entire home is encapsulated, which absolutely makes the most comfortable living conditions ever. And it goes a long way to reduce your power bills. You would be shocked to see some of the spaces we build. And the number one thing that we hear is, hey, we started getting our power bill. You know, in South Carolina, heat is brutal. In the summer, they're talking about, hey, man, my power bill was less for this bigger home than what I was spending on my previous home. And it goes back to building science and the way that we put the system together, because we have that in mind. We don't want to just give you something that looks cool. We want it to be efficient as well. So no, it does not take a substantial amount of additional energy to keep it cool and control the internal temperature. Things aren't leaking out. Now that can happen if you're not building with residential building science and you're not building with someone who has developed a system to make that a priority. A lot of people are focused on the look. A lot of people are focused on giving you something that looks like what you want, but not everyone is taking the attention and the detail to roll it out, or they'll treat that upgraded insulation as an upgrade. And, you know, when you're in a decision in building your home and you're choosing between the beautiful countertops that you want or this insulation package, without knowing, you could make a really, really, really critical error. So at the Barndo Co, we completely eliminate all other options when we're building. And so your base standard and our base price is going to be a premium insulation so that that home is comfortable and you can control the temperature with ease. Misconception number 3. I heard they're super noisy. I couldn't imagine living inside of a metal box. Every time it rained, every time the wind blowed, it would just echo and sound hollow. And even that translates over to the high ceilings, right? I have people ask me all the time. Matter of fact, I had another builder ask me, hey, when y'all do those huge vaults, man, is it not like super echoey and noisy in that house? And I'm like, absolutely not. And there's a couple reasons for that. Again, it goes back to the way that we build the external envelope cavity of our barndominiums. The insulation plays a big piece in that. But there's some other things that go into making those things, the barns that we build, not quite as noisy or hollow sounding as other metal buildings. One additional step that we do is every single build that we do, the walls and the roof deck are sheathed with OSB plywood or zip board, depending on where we're building and how we're putting it together. But that additional piece of thermal barrier between the metal and the home gives a little bit of a noise reduction. You couple that with the fact that we fully encapsulate the cavity on the roof deck and the walls so that your drywall in the interior of the home is touching insulation, that's touching a exterior sheathing, that's then attached to the metal cladding. It gives you some layers to knock down the externals. So yes, if it's raining, you can hear that gentle tink that everyone loves, right? Who doesn't love hearing a little light rain on a metal roof? But it takes away the roaring sound that you've had, like when you were in high school in gym and it was raining hard outside and it was so loud you couldn't hear anything. The system combats that. So could you walk into a barndominium and it be so loud and absorb all the sound so you couldn't hear your TV, and if there's a storm outside you can't even hear yourself think? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're not taking the additional steps to create that, then yeah, it can be loud. But at the Barndo Co., again, our emphasis is we only build residential structures, and the only thing we care about is that when you move in, you're having a great experience living in your home. And so again, our base packages take all that into consideration. There's no way that we would build it to where you're not getting these foundational pieces to make that home comfortable and quiet. I've took numerous other builders and homeowners into some of our homes, and instantly they can tell a difference with the system that we use versus some other things that they've been inside of. And it just creates a more comfortable environment that's quiet and efficient. Number 4, all that metal, it's got to rust or corrode. So this is a misconception because you just don't know what you don't know, right? So yes, metal can corrode. Yes, if you do the wrong applications or you're in the wrong area and you don't put the correct things on your exterior of your home, yeah, they'll rust and corrode. And metal will naturally break down over time. However, if you use high quality products, most of them are sealed and treated and coated to last 50, 60 years without even having paint fade. Now, that can be a tricky one in and of itself with paint fading because different pigments fade at different rates. So if you're doing reds and greens, you're going to see it quicker just from oxidation on the metal. But as far as rusting and corroding, if it's installed correctly to the manufacturer specifications, you're not going to have those issues if you're using a high quality panel from a reputable distributor. And that's all we do. Every single metal panel that goes on a barndominium at the Barndo Co. is a coated metal that should last a minimum of 50 years. And then the fasteners that we also use a specific fastener to cut down on the erosion and corrosion that can happen to the fastener because fasteners fail faster than the panel. Some other things to keep in mind. It's very important that you don't go and wash your home with some corrosive chemicals, right? This is in our new homeowner orientation to where we tell you, hey, don't do this. You don't want to store chemicals around this. You don't want to spray certain types of chemicals around your home. If you're going to hire someone to come in and pressure wash or do something like that, you want to make sure that they're not using any of these volatile compounds on your metal because you can create a scenario where you're creating corrosion by not maintaining it correctly. The good news for you is it's a very low maintenance application, and the chances are you're not going to need that service anyway. Are they going to rust and corrode easily? Absolutely not. Are there instances and circumstances where you, as a homeowner, can create a situation where it will corrode? Absolutely. It's just knowing what to do and what not to do. For instance, in your garage space, if you had some paint thinners or some lawn chemicals or different things that you were storing, if you were storing those in a barn where the metal panel was exposed on the interior, just the being in proximity to some of those chemicals could create corrosion, especially on the underbelly that's not treated as high with UV resistance as the exterior coating of that metal. However, with us at the Barndo Co., we're going to put sheathing across before the metal goes on, so your metal is not exposed to the inside of that building, which prevents some of that. Now, again, you got to use good homeowner practices of what you're storing and how you're storing it, but you don't want to put acetone or paint thinner or any of these corrosives, bleach or anything on that material to wash it or keep it clean, because it's going to break down the components in it. But natural rain, etc., not going to be an issue for you. In fact, it's engineered to last longer than any other siding, cladding, or roofing in the marketplace. So you're getting superior quality that's designed with the intention of lasting a long time. It's just, hey, I need to understand how to take care of it. And the great thing is, it doesn't require a lot of maintenance. So no, that's not going to happen. Now, before we jump into the last misconception for this episode, if you have concerns like these, go ahead and drop me a line here in the comments on this video, or you could head over to thebarndoco.com, reach out. We'll do our best to answer your questions and get you on the path to your dream barndominium. So without further ado, let's dive into the last one, which is a hot one. This is one that I hear all the time, no matter who I'm talking to, and that's this. Number 5, they lose their resale value quickly, or they won't work as a rental. This is a misconception that I have heard so many times because people can't understand. They think of this as like fad housing, or they think of this as, some caveat to real construction, traditional construction. And the thought is like, hey, this is what I like, but I don't know that the resale potential is there. Here's where that's completely debunked. When you build a barndominium with the Barndo Co., I can speak specifically to the way we build, you're going to have a cost savings when compared to a custom home builder, right? Now, again, it's not going to be cost comparative to a low budget economy style build, but if you're comparing custom to custom, you're going to come out of the gate with a lower per square foot cost for your barndominium than most custom builders. And as a result, when you go for your appraisal for your loan and when the home is complete, they're going to use other custom homes in the area to create that appraised value. Now, the advantage of that is if they're appraising it against homes that were, anywhere from 20 to 50% more expensive to build, you're building equity in that barndominium the day that it's built. It doesn't lose value. If anything, it holds value because of the way that we construct it and because of the low maintenance exteriors. Our homes don't diminish over time. You don't see faded paint. You don't see, shingle roofs that have been beat up. You don't have that with the barndominium. So you're building a long value item, and your long-term value is going to hold, and that home is going to rise and or fall with the local conditions of the market in your area. You're not going to lose your value. They're going to hold their resale value. In fact, we've been doing this for the last 3 years, and we now have clients that we built for who have put their home up for resale, and not a single one of them are reselling for what they paid to build it. There's a lot of equity in these homes to where when we see the resale, it's kind of shocking to us. And they sell rather quickly because people want them. I would debunk that immediately and tell you that there's no chance that if you're building with the Barndo Co. that you're going to have an issue with your resale or maintaining the value of your home. If anything, you should be building equity in during the entire process. The second side of that, these are hard to do. They don't hold their value, and it's really hard to use them in a rental situation. I'll completely debunk that. We deal with a lot of investors that come in that want to build some of these and add them to their portfolio, hold them as assets, and put them on short-term or long-term style rentals. And they're a great application for that because they're going to give you something really custom that are going to catch people's attention when they're looking at, especially in short-term rental market. If you're trying to compete with other short-term rentals and you have this really unique property, people are more susceptible to click it and book with you. And the thing about it is, In doing that, you're also creating a scenario as an investor where you have a much lower maintenance to keep this property up, and you're getting way more bang for your buck. As a matter of fact, here's a video where we talk with one of our clients, Claire Austell with Dax Properties. We built a really, really cool, unique duplex barndo on a basement in downtown Spartanburg, South Carolina for her and her company. And she's been managing it and using it as a short-term and mid-term rental for the last 2 years. And there's some in there from her perspective as an investor who contacted us to build a home for that exact purpose.